Living the dream. This is the Outside Gate with Steve Hall on the L4 Media Network, where we talk US moto and anywhere the conversation goes. Today we're joined by Pro Circuit mechanic Tony Archer. How are you?
Hey, we're doing good, man.
That's the way, dude. How about that 300th win? Hey, so where were you, man? Were you there? Were you watching from home? Talk us through a little bit about last weekend.
Yeah, I was actually at home right now with a bunch of riders out. We don't need the full staff, so we're the guys that don't have riders at the races right now are just rotating out. But yeah, I was watching it from home, and it's pretty funny how it all worked out, man. I kind of was watching Ty in practice, and they showed him a little bit on the TV. Obviously, I couldn't see anything more than that, but yeah, I was watching him, and he looked really good, and like on a track that challenging, and like it always rains Friday night before High Point. It's almost a given, you know. So yeah, I was watching Ty and I texted Ryan and I was like, buddy, hey, that kid's gonna be a real headache for people if he can get a start. So maybe get them all hyped up. But either way, yeah. And Ryan agreed with me, but it was cool to see like him put it all together because I think he's had the speed all year. His qualifying times have been awesome. Even at Paula, he qualified really well for having literally, less than an hour on the motorcycle. So it was awesome. It was really cool, especially because like Ty and his journey and everything with his family. So and for Ryan, I'm pumped because like, dude, he's been at Pro Circuit. This is his third year there, and this is the first real opportunity he's had to work races, and it's his first win as a mechanic as well. So I couldn't be happier for him.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm still on a high from it. I reckon. So obviously, Ryan Hughes, the real Ryan Hughes, as we like to say, is Ty's mechanic, and he's a mutual friend of myself and Tony. That's how I actually got in contact with Tony to come on the show. So yeah, and he is a real good bloke, as we would say down here. So yeah, he's a top bloke, and
Oh,
couldn't be more stoked for him. He has, just I guess a quick backstory on him. He's been on the show before. If you want to know Ryan's story, he was episode 1 of this podcast. So,
oh wow.
um, and but his time at Pro Circuit was his two riders have been Jet Reynolds and then Max Volan. So he hasn't been able to make it to many races, unfortunately, with those two fellas struggling with injuries throughout their time at Pro Circuit. It just all fell into place, and yeah, I was in like a group chat of a heap of people that are all sort of friends with Ryan, and
Yeah.
we were just losing our minds, like in our individual lounge rooms, losing our minds. So yeah, it was. I don't reckon I breathed that last lap. And
Oh yeah,
yeah,
man. I'm happy for Ryan. He's definitely like it's been a long wait for him because he's been a mechanic for a while, and man, for him to get like the first one in that way is pretty cool for him too. Because like obviously it was a big milestone for Pro Circuit to get that 300th win. I think they've been waiting for it
yeah,
since Supercross. We haven't really had any like since that 299 number. That Levi got. It was like, man, it was almost like we were kind of like waiting for something to happen. And then, yeah, for Ryan to get that. And then on Monday, we had like the pizza, obviously. But then on top of that, all of the Cowie, crew came, like the factory Cowie 450 team. Obviously it's a big deal for Mitch and Pro Circuit, but it's a big deal
mm,
for Kawasaki as well because, they've been there for the majority of those wins with Pro Circuit. So it was just really cool to see. And Ryan, I mean, he's waited a long time, but I think that made it worth it for him. So.
absolutely, man. Yeah, it was fantastic. And so obviously, for those that don't know, Tony's rider is Austin Forkner. Um, yeah, obviously he's been in the wars, so you've been missing out on getting to the races and that as well. I see he called in. Mitch posted some photos and that sort of thing with him. I see he called. So that was the day he called in, was it?
Yeah, on Monday this week, he came in. So pretty cool, man. It's good to see him up and about. Obviously, like not much has been said about the surgery that he was going through, like publicly,
Yeah,
but just I've gotten pretty close with Austin. Just my third year with him, and when you're with a rider, like you spend more. I spend more time with Austin at the track than I do with my own family. So
yeah,
it's been a tough road for him. Obviously, this was the scary part, getting the surgery done and then recovering well. So the
Mm.
scariest part is done. Now it's just like, the road of doing everything right and recovering smart and listening to the doctors, because brain surgery, man, there's no, if you say that, that sends shivers down anyone's spine.
Yeah, yeah. It's a scary thing, man. Like, I think I'm sure I speak for the whole world of fans that our heart just breaks for that kid. Like there won't be a dry eye in the house if he ever gets that championship that he deserves. Yeah, there won't be a dry eye in the motocross world. I think that poor kid.
Yeah,
So yeah.
there's no one out there that can say he hasn't gone through a lot to get it. That's for sure. And
Oh
every time he comes back, dude, it's amazing, because I've
yeah,
been since 2022 was my first year with him. But every time he comes back, the kid's just there. Every time he's there, and it's like this year we were, and I'm a full believer in, like, it had nothing to do with his riding per se. I mean, obviously a little bit of depth perception with the contact falling out, and he'll never blame it on that because that's not the type of person he is. But to say it didn't have an effect would be a little
mm,
untrue, because I wear contacts myself, and I blinked one out at the shop the other day and I can barely work. So,
yeah,
and yeah, I mean, it's just a little bit of like, man, if it can go wrong for him, it's gone wrong. Clearly this year, man. And it's funny because we say the real Ryan Hughes. I work with Ryan Hughes in the work bay next to me in
yeah.
the shop, and then at the track, I got to work with both of them. It's like, so who's Rhino? Which one's Rhino, man? So it's pretty cool though. But like, yeah, working with Ryan Hughes, Rhino, that dude, he's smart about how he approaches, working on the motorcycle, and it helped Austin a lot, and it showed. And everybody leading into the first round was like, "This is the best Austin Forkner we've ever seen," and I would agree fully, because, man, it was just like, obviously with my racing background, I have a little bit of information, and with Rhino having all the information, studying all the years that he has, and you know, the cool thing with Rhino and Austin, and I was just a privateer racer myself, and they both respected that I've been there and done it, whether it's at their level or not. Um, and we always just bounce ideas off of each other. And hey, we're gonna try it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But we can't say we left anything on the table. That was always our mentality. So we try it all. We try everything. It works. It doesn't. But now we know there was no questions.
Yeah. They just seemed like a really good match. It just seemed it just seemed to work perfectly. Those two, when they started working together, it just from a total outsider's point of view, it just made sense for those two to work together. It just looked and felt right. Everything you're seeing and hearing, and then certainly that first round, and the start of the second round and all that sort of thing is just like, wow, this kid is like, this is a new level, and it was exciting,
Yeah.
man. And then another heartbreak for him. So yeah, no good,
Yeah.
man. But yeah, certainly wish him well, man, and for yourself to get back to the races, So yeah,
Definitely. Yeah. Those races were heartbreaking, man. And it's just like going back to where he was at, like riding wise, like everyone says like, "Oh, back it down, it'll take a second, whatever." But we've talked about it obviously nonstop, me and him, and he's like, "I wasn't riding hard." He's like, "I was honestly trying to like ride the track off memory because he couldn't see." And he's like, I finally got my line down, and then I was just like, I'm gonna hit my marks and just bounce my way around the track, and I got 5 minutes left, and that's kind of where his head was at. But and then as far as the actual crash goes, he was just like, maybe it was depth perception, maybe it was whatever, but he says I didn't
mm,
think I was in trouble. Yeah, that's why, like, when you see him the crash, it doesn't look like he braces for it at all. But in his head, he was like, I didn't think I was in a position to crash until I was in the air.
yeah,
So, you know, we're just happy that he's going to be healthy. That's the biggest thing for his
that's the
life,
biggest thing.
not just racing.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, man. Cool. Let's get into a bit of Tony Archer's career. Hey, so my favourite part of the show, man, is always the question when I ask you, when did the bug bite? When did you first see a mini bike, ride a mini bike, see a race, and just think, oh damn, this is for me. This is what my life's going to be.
Uh, it's hard to. I can't pick an exact. I can't remember the exact year, but I think it was 1998 or 99. I grew up 15 minutes from Budds Creek, so obviously a well-known national track. So we went to a race. I think it was 99. Yeah, 99 was the race. We were there, and it was a mud race. And I just remember just like, this is badass. Like my dad was a drag racer. And just my background was racing. My whole family, every generation of my family is a racing family. So if it's got wheels, we've tried to race it in some way, shape, or form. But I don't know what it was about the dirt bikes, but they got me. And I think not long after that, I think the following Christmas after that Pro National, my dad bought me and my brother some XRs. I got a XR70 or something, and trail rode a bit, loved it. And then like I got into like launching jumps and flatland and stuff and breaking spokes on the XR. So then my dad was like, well, here we go, time for like a real race bike, and got me a KX60, and yeah. And then he's like, it's just a normal backyard thing. And then he's like, you know what, let's go try a race at Budds Creek and see like how you like it. And like, here we are, and then I pursued that the rest of my career. And I did climb the ranks to a point, but then you let go of the actual racing part and find another way to get it, and that's why I'm in my position now.
Yeah, that's often the case, isn't it? You hear a lot of mechanics where they're like, you sort of got to a point where, like, I'm good, but I know I'm not quite good enough to make a good living out of this. Yeah, you sort of got to that point. What point was that? Like, as far as your amateur career, like, what was the sort of the height of your amateur career?
So my amateur career really honestly wasn't anything special. I only did 4 years at Loretta's. I did like 285 years, and one of the years I crashed out on the start and broke my wrist. And then I did a schoolboy year and a B class year. And my final year in B class was like pretty good. I had a couple good motos, but never put the whole thing together. And of course, like my class was insane because I mean, the generation of Eli Tomac, that's where I was at. And I'm like, he won
Yeah,
everything the year I was at Loretta's. And I'm like, yeah, the two classes I picked, schoolboy and 250B mod, I think, and it's Tomac dominates. Yeah, Bogle and a lot of the names that we see now at the top are like were in my class, so it was tough. But I think I was fifth in one class, and then I think sixth or seventh in the other overall. So I mean, not terrible, but not enough to have like a manufacturer say like, hey, like this kid, he might have it. But
mm.
then I went straight from B class into like some pro ams and got my pro card because my dad was pretty much like, we're not doing Loretta's again, dude. Like we're not going to get anything from it. Let's put you in the pro stuff and you'll either sink or swim. And I actually had a decently long pro career. Like I had flashes. So my first 4 years of racing professionally was just a struggle. I was just a struggle privateer. Made the races here and there, and then I think around 2014 a local team of mine helped me out, just with like he'd haul my bike to the race. That's kind of like what it was, and pay my entry, I think. And started making the races a little more because there was so much stress. There's so much stress on you as a privateer, like a true privateer,
Mm.
where I'm just calling these people to help me, like, hey, like a gas card for $100 would get me to the next race. Like, could you do that? And then it was just one of those things where like I couldn't do it properly early on. And then I finally got a little bit of support and I could spend some time training. I could maybe go ride once a week, like during the week. And that started trending upwards. And then 2014, I started making the races, started scoring some points and stuff. And made my first ever, I was a 450 guy. So I made my first ever 450 main in 2014 leading into outdoors. And then obviously like it just turned into like a building year for me where I started to figure it out. And then going into 2015, my team, which was Traders Racing Kawasaki, the team owner Gary Luckett was like a supporter of mine through like my amateur stuff. Every year at Loretta's, he'd give us like $500 or something. But yeah, I went into the racing thing in 2015. Gary was like, "Hey, like let's bet on you a little bit and let's figure it out," And he paid for me to stay and train at Dreamland in Florida because we knew the Renslins really well. They were a Northeast family, and yeah, it just worked out. And it was just I got to stay there and ride. as far as like living expenses and stuff like food and all that, that was still on me. Obviously, I didn't have a salary. I only had like a small bonus program if I made mains or did good at the races. So yeah, I remember, and this is still like it's still a struggle at this point because like financially I didn't have any family backing. Like they supported me
Mm.
as like, like, hey, we wish you do or wish you well. We hope you do really good. But as far as money goes, they weren't in a position to help. So I remember leaving Maryland to go to Florida, and I'm talking like beginning of November, and we don't race till February because my team only did East Coast. I left my home with $350 to my name, and me and Kenny Day, he was our team manager at the time, drove together down there, split some fuel, got there. We lived in the team fun mover, but I was at a place where I could ride and train consistently, and I could work a day or two in the week and make some money. I ended up working
Mm.
at Walsh Racecraft, which is a ATV aftermarket parts company, which happened to be nearby Dreamland. So yeah, I guess going along this story is 2015. I could ride and train, and I could actually do it properly. That was the first time in my career I could do it properly, and it showed. I went to the first round directly into the 450 main through the semi, and like as a privateer, like you have to like temper those expectations with like the result in the main because yeah, making it's one thing, but to be competitive in that 20 minutes is a whole other animal. And I would be like 15th to 17th, and that would kind of be like where I was at. And I was like, every time I made the main, I was working harder at that 20-minute moto and like getting that part stronger. And like I progressed through the year and, did really well. And then going into outdoors, kind of the same thing, 2015, where before that year, scoring points was like, oh, yeah, like that was awesome. Then, like, just scoring points wasn't good enough. It had to be like a better setup. You had to like really be able to score like, close to double digit points per moto, was the goal.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I mean, I had my flashes. Like I said, I scored points in most every moto unless there was an incident of some sort. And then I got my first ever top 10 moto at Butts Creek in the mud, home race, which was amazing. Yeah, and then I guess the point where I decided it wasn't worth it anymore was the following year for whatever reason, like, and I think it was more or less just like upgrading the staff on the team on traders because I still had a ride, but with all my good results and kind of being the only one doing anything for the team in 2015, going into 2016, my support was pretty much like not even cut in half. Like I had a quarter of the support that I had in 2015,
Yeah.
where like everything's on me now, and I'm like, oh crap! Like I get it, we're trying to like take the team to the next level, but like last year when you had no one, you had me, and that was it. So um, that year, I obviously 2016, I couldn't train, I couldn't ride. They didn't get me a bike until February, like beginning of February, to ride and practice, and we were expected to race middle of February for East Coast. So I went to Germany and raced some of those races and broke my hand, got all messed up, behind the eight ball again. But I guess 2016 was the year where I was like, man, if I can't afford to do it properly, then I shouldn't do it. You know,
Mm.
like I'm not training, I'm not riding during the week, I'm not doing anything, but I'm still expected to come and perform on the weekend. And but I had to make money to be able to go to the race. Was like my
Yeah.
biggest thing. I'm like, well, if I can't get there, I can't actually race. So like what's the priority? Is the priority to practice and train or like I mean, there wasn't even the money to practice and train was the hardest part.
Mm.
And I didn't have a practice mechanic, which I'm very mechanically inclined, which isn't a problem besides time and workload.
Time. Yeah, yeah. There, when when the other guys are resting, you're
Yeah,
working on your own bike. Yeah.
yeah. So it hit me that year. That yeah, if I can't do what I did the previous year, like because I mean it was 5 days a week, I'm working, and I'm riding. I was riding 5 days a week in 2015 leading up to the Supercross season. And I was like, we were on, and everything was good. The bike was good, and obviously same thing 2016. I wasn't riding, make the bike better or myself better. So I was just behind the 8 ball in a lot of areas, and I quit racing the first time because there is more to that. I took a job welding in DC, like a union job. That lasted maybe 3-4 months, and then got a call to go race again with Brian White Racing, and some of my lifelong friends there now because I love those guys and they were just genuine people. But I didn't belong on the racetrack. I did not belong on the racetrack whatsoever, and it was kind of the same thing. I realized then, like I was racing 250 class and
Mm.
at BWR, and I would make means, but that was it. There was no like there was no competitiveness in the mains because I had 2 weeks of prep after 6 months off of a motorcycle, so it was fun. But that was it, and then started wrenching. Called up Traders, my old team, and they hired me to work for Luke Rensland in 2018.
Nice, nice. So that was that. Was my next question was who was your first guy? So Rensland, yeah. So in 2018, and then
Yep.
so how long were you with them for then?
Traders
Mm.
as a mechanic or a rider?
As a mechanic.
Mechanic, I was with them for actually only a year and a half. So the first year there, I was with Rensland, and we had some pretty good success, honestly. Like we were mostly like a 5 to 7 guy. Luke
Mm.
was. But with a start, we knew he could do something good. But yeah, he yanked a second place start at Indy Supercross East West Shootout in 2018, and landed himself on the podium. Held second, ran the fastest lap of the race. AC passed him final lap. I think at that point he was just happy with the podium.
Yeah.
But
So that was
yeah,
your first podium. First
yeah,
podium as a in pros as a rider or a mechanic, yeah?
yeah, yeah. The only thing I got close to a podium before that was an LCQ, which ain't the same. I mean, we both know that.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
um, but yeah, it was really cool. Like my first year wrenching, and I learned so much. I don't know if you're familiar with the name Skip Norfolk.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, he was like my mentor. So when I started wrenching, he was the guy who taught me everything, and it was a steep learning curve for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So Skip was involved with that team at that time, was he? Or
Yes, yeah, he was, and
okay, yeah.
I almost blame Skip a little bit for my final year, but yes and no.
Yeah, yeah. So what was Skip? I don't remember that. Yeah, what was Skip doing for that team? Was he like team managing it or yeah, what
So
was it?
Kenny Day was team manager, and then Skip
Yeah.
was considered race director because
Okay. Yeah.
he kind of worked from afar. Like he would spend time at the shop only like a week or so at a time, and then he lived in Vegas. So,
Yeah.
um, like there was no real official crew chief at first. I guess like me and the other mechanic Josh on the team kind of both took that role, like ordering parts and keeping track of inventory and stuff. But it was a small team, so it wasn't of any large magnitude at all. So, um, yeah, like Skip was, I guess his role was race director. He kind of like made the decisions on like what direction the bike would go. And worked like with like Bundy did our engines, worked with Bundy to like, go over the dyno charts and figure everything out. And then yeah. And then the following year was the year that Traders and Club MX merged. So it was the first year of Club MX on the Yamaha.
Yep.
And that's where I was then. So pretty cool. And
Yeah.
then that year I technically took over like a crew chief position as much as that could be crew chief. I was crew chief, engine guy, full-time practice guy. Like I was like the only full-time employee for the team.
Who was on?
Yeah.
So who else was at club at that stage after the merger?
So as far as staff goes, it was me, Kenny Day, and Skip were the only employees left. We were the three.
Yeah.
And then we obviously wanted to take Luke with us to go, but Luke didn't want to continue if he was forced to ride at Club MX because he has his own facility. So
Okay. Yeah.
um yeah, so Luke didn't come with us. It's funny because we actually getting riders was tough because the setup was not as good as before. Because pretty much the team owner Gary was just tired of like putting so much out of pocket himself.
Yeah.
So yeah, going to club, it was just the three of us as far as staff goes, and then we had a couple guys be mechanics as weekend only guys. But yeah, it was a really rough year. That was a really rough year, man, because that threw me into the deep end because Skip wasn't available to come out as much as possible, or as much as he wanted.
Yeah.
Then I was full time engine guy and the only full time mechanic, and we had 5 riders.
Yeah. So
So I
who was the
wasn't.
riders then? That would have been Amart, Alex.
No, no, it was actually
Not yet.
before that. The riders
Okay.
we had were, and it actually started out. We had Cameron McAdoo to start the year, believe it or not.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And then he obviously got the Geico fill-in ride, and he was like, all of us were like, "Hey, man, go." I mean,
Mm.
some people were a little mad about it, but we were like, "Go, you have to, man. That's a better deal."
Yeah. Yeah.
But we had Josh Osby, Jace
Yep.
Pennington, Tanner Stack, Joey Crown, and then we had a Canadian 450 rider because they were doing the Canadian Outdoor Series that year, and he was his name was Keelan Meston, which it was a mess, man, because I had a mess of bikes all over the place, man. I had engines. We were blowing up engines daily, and dude,
Mm.
I'm 6 a.m. to midnight every day in that shop, just grinding away, and it was a mess, but we were just trying to figure out that bike, and then on top of that, I had to go back and forth to Charlotte and go to Bundy. Bundy did our engines and work on the dyno, build the race engines, build the practice engines, build the spec because it was a new bike. It was a mess, and we made the best out of a very very bad situation as far as like budget goes.
Mm.
Decent results. We had Osby was like our guy. He had quite a few top tens. My rider got injured second round in, but I still obviously had plenty of duties to take care of. And then we ended up picking up Bradley Taft as a fill-in rider. um, yeah, it was kind of a mess, but it was so much on me that I actually got a call towards the end of Supercross that Rocky Mountain needed one mechanic. This is when they were the KTM factory supported team,
Yeah.
and I was like, absolutely, get me out of here, man. Get me out of here, dude. I was in because going into that Canadian Outdoor Series, there was no plan to have any help. There was no plan to do anything
Mm.
um, to like get me sorted or to help me do what I was doing. So it was a really tough situation, and I felt bad leaving, but I just felt like I was being taken advantage of in a sense.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
So yeah, and then off to Rocky Mountain, man. Who was your rider once you got to Rocky Mountain?
I was with Justin Bogle for the outdoor season in 2019.
Yeah, yeah. No,
Yep.
so that would be Bogle and Baggett years.
Yep, Bogle, Baggett, and Benny Bloss, and it was cool, man, because like I mean, it was my first like factory effort, and everything was different. I was used to struggling, like, hey, don't change parts on the bike because we don't have any to put back on.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
like, here, they're like, you have to change parts on the bike because we have a lot, and then like appearance means a lot more with those types of teams as well. So, um, it was sweet, man, because I got with Bogle. I moved to Oklahoma, and like that's where I was at in my process too. I was all in. Like, if I got to go somewhere, I'm going. If I
Yeah.
gotta, move to wherever, I'm a drop of a hat, dude. I took my truck, drove to Oklahoma, instantly. They flew me out to California right after that. After I parked my truck at, I can't. I think I parked it at Raynard's, but flew to California, stayed out there for a few weeks, went to the races with the guys, and got an apartment in Oklahoma. Had no furniture, man. I threw an air mattress on the floor. That was the only furniture I had for my summer there. it
Yeah.
was,
Nice.
I had to try to climb the ladder somehow, and Rocky Mountain was a
Yeah.
good way to get in the door. And then had some good results with Bogle. We led a couple 450 motos that summer. He was fighting that Epstein Barr really bad. um, then yeah, finished the year with Rocky Mountain, and I was out of a job again because they were going down to 2 riders, and they already had 2 long-term employees before me. So
Yeah.
really, if there's someone that's got to go, it's me.
Yeah. Yeah. Last in, first out sort of
Yeah,
policies. Yeah.
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 So then TLD had an opening, and I jumped on it right away, and that was really cool. And again, this time I actually went back home to Florida and got all my bed and all my stuff, and then drove to California and moved out here, and I've been here ever since. But
Yeah.
sad situation at TLD, honestly. My rider was starting there, Brian Moreau.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, he had a lot of talent, that kid, and he was also just a
Mm.
really good kid. Came from like a pretty impoverished family in France. So every dollar he made was sent back home to his family. So that was really cool. Like the purpose for him doing it was for his family and everything, and that was awesome. But the kid was unbelievable, dude,
Mm.
unreal. I think we'd be talking about him a lot more if the circumstances were different. But yeah, I spent a lot of time with him. The kid didn't have a license or anything here. He was only 17 when he came over.
Mm.
So he would stay at my house. He'd living at Marvin Moose Cans and couldn't drive, so I'd go pick him up on the weekends and hang out. And just a super good kid. And man, it's just sad to see, you know, the outcome of his career, or the end of it, whatever we want to call it. But
Yeah.
that kid deserves a lot more for sure.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. That's it's a fucking cruel sport sometimes, isn't it? We love it. We love it.
Yeah. Oh
But
yeah,
it's
man.
the bad times are extra bad. Yeah, that's for sure. In the
Yeah,
sport, it gives you both ends of that emotional spectrum, doesn't it? Gives you the worst of the worst and the best of the best. It,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. But we love it. That's why we still do it. Even with
Oh, absolutely, man.
I guess we know the risk. We know the
Yeah, I
risk.
mean,
Yeah,
that's the hard part. You swing that leg over the bike, man,
yeah,
and I think some people take it for granted because, like, I mean, I remember when I raced, I didn't even ever think about it. Um, I just rode dirt bikes, and it
yeah,
was never like crossing my mind, like, hey, this could be it. And I
yeah.
don't think anyone really does until they have like a moment
Nah,
like that, like
yeah. I
Austin's
think
moment that he just had. That crash was
yeah,
big, scary. So
yeah. Yeah, I think if anybody ever gets to a stage where when they get on the bike they're thinking about that, then it's probably time to finish up. Like it's like
I think you're doing
I we all get injured in that, but I never think about it when I'm on the bike. Like since I'm a dad, I show a lot more just sort of caution, but it's not in my mind that I could get like paralyzed or die or anything. It's in my mind that I'm gonna tweak a wrist or an ankle and not be able to go to work the next day. That's
Yeah,
sort of more minor. It's just like because I work for myself at a little construction business. So it's like if I'm out for 3 weeks with a bloody tweaked up shoulder or something like and I can't swing a hammer, then I'm not making money for 3 weeks. So that's
yeah,
more that. But yeah, I don't think about I think I think if anyone's that scared that they're thinking about. I mean, who was it? Was it A Ray that was talking about? I think it was A Ray that was talking about how Brendan's injuries affected him because they're really good mates. About heart draft injuries. Was that
yeah,
A
yeah. I
Ray?
think
I
that
think it
was
was A Ray was talking
the
about
word.
why he retired because like what happened to Brent, Hartraft and being his one of his best mates and that, and he got him scared. Like every time he was on the bike, he was thinking about that, and he sort of knew that it was time to give it up. As far as racing, casual ride is a different thing, but yeah, as far as being a racer, yeah, it it's a terrible thing sometimes, man. Yeah. So
Yeah,
TLD,
honestly,
man, TLD, you weren't there for too long then, I'd say.
1 year.
Yeah.
When Brian crashed, they were actually in need of a mechanic for Pierce Brown
Yep.
because his mechanic had injured himself riding actually earlier in the year, and it was a pretty serious wrist injury. So he was not going to be able to wrench for Pierce. So at that point, either one of the East Coast guys was gonna, or sorry, West Coast guys was going to be double duty for Pierce, or obviously the situation with Brian opened me up to be available. So I did that, and I worked for Pierce for the rest of the year, and it was a really good year. But I didn't really fit super well at TLD. Nothing wrong with it. I mean, it's a really well run program, but under the KTM umbrella, like you have to go along with what's being done already. You don't really have much of a say in your motorcycle. I mean, you do to a point, but
Mm.
it's very regulated by KTM and all that. And I felt like I had a lot to offer, so it was kind of like whenever I would try to bring something to the table for my rider or for whatever for the bikes, it just wasn't ever really like relayed or listened to or taken in well. So
Yeah.
uh, it was just a little weird. And then like they didn't have a spot for me the following year because they were going to 3 riders instead of 4 because they were bringing in Barsha. And
Yeah.
originally, one of the mechanics was going to go to Barsha. I was going to stay with Pierce, and then one of the mechanics was going to go with the 3rd rider. But then Barsha brought his own mechanic with him. So same thing. Last one in, first one out. I was the most recently hired mechanic. Everyone had been there more long term. So I was like the obvious choice to go just because of seniority or whatever you want to call it.
Mm.
And I was again left without a job. And then I actually worked for Michael Lindsay's team. I don't know if you're familiar with the FXR
Yep.
Chaparral Honda team with Cody
Yep.
Schock.
Yep. Yep.
And coming on to Cody Schock, dude, that kid, he's been my best friend a long time, a long, long time. It's funny because when I was growing up racing and locally, like Budds Creek, like I'm like the man, So Cody was always like this little kid that like looked up to me and like was, it was cool. Like that's how it was. But now obviously look at the roles, how they've changed. But um, Cody, yeah, he's been a really, really close friend of mine, like my best friend for so long. And I took a chance on Michaels because of that. I actually had an opportunity with Pro Circuit that year that I just honestly didn't even wait for. Like I put my resume in and talked to Mitch and everybody, and then maybe like 2 days later, I was like, you know what, guys, I'm going to take another avenue. Thanks for your consideration to PC. And I went and worked with Cody because like the money was okay with Michael, like more than what I made at TLD actually. So I was like, why not? It's still advancement in my career. And at Michael's, I could pretty much like because it was me, Michael, and Pedro, Richard Sterling, who is now Tom Vial's mechanic. He was J Mart's mechanic at Star for all his championships.
Yeah.
A lot of knowledge, and like I pretty much ran that team, So I think as far as learning goes and growing in my career, that was like my biggest year ever because I had my hands in everything. I was talking to the sponsors. I think I had my hands in everything except for the actual money transactions from the sponsors to the team.
Yep.
And dude, it was huge. And as far as what I did with the team, but what I did with Cody as well was I was his mechanic. I was his trainer. I was his riding coach. I was everything for Cody that year because he couldn't afford anything also.
Yeah.
um, so I think just like learning what worked and what didn't work and like setting up the bike and doing everything, like every piece of that program was like I had freedom.
Mm.
So it was really cool. It was awesome because what Cody did that year was awesome. Where he came from
Yeah.
to where he was that year, just based on the
Yeah. It
work
was a
we did,
good year.
a
Yeah. He
huge jump.
burst onto the scene, didn't he? He burst onto the scene.
Yeah, I took a big leap as far as that went. Making changes and like it worked. Like it was nice to see like the work we did. Obviously, he still had to ride the bike. He's an
Mm.
amazing rider. and
Yeah.
I'll never take that away from him. But I feel like, just giving him that structure and that guidance and seeing it like translate to results on the track was like, yeah, I took a lot of pride in that myself. So it was cool to see, but I'm happy to see like Cody's ran with the ball and everything
Mm.
we worked on. Like we still talk, and he still obviously like confides in me about certain things and asks questions, and it's awesome to see for sure.
Yeah, yeah, it is. He's a fan favorite nowadays, isn't he?
Yeah,
He's a fan
it's hard
favorite.
not to like Cody, man. Cody is just like
Yeah,
a lovable kid.
very much. Yeah, very much. Yeah, he's a very very likable guy. He's got a personality. Even if I think the sky's the limit for his riding. But even that aside, he's got a great future just with his personality alone, man. Like
Yeah,
he's one of those guys that doors are gonna open for him because of his personality.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a very cool thing, man. Yeah, very very cool. And so ML's team was only for one. It only was for a year anyway, wasn't it? Or was it for 2 years?
He had the team a year before I was there.
Oh, so you were there for the last year. Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously it was very small then, like very experimental. Like he didn't really know what he was doing, but I think me
Mm,
and Pedro brought in a lot of structure.
yeah.
And obviously the money was not there. What we did with the amount of money we had was huge. Like
Mm,
we tried to run it like a factory team, but we couldn't. So like we made it appear like it was really good. But
yeah.
Michael was driving the truck himself to the races.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember
It
that.
was
Yeah.
like we'd fly in, we'd get to the truck at like 4:30 or 5 a.m. and have to do our bike build.
Mm,
And we'd do our bike build, and then it'd be noon or so. And then like I'd have to stop everything, put the bike to the side. All right, don't worry about that anymore. That's done. Wash the semi, clean the semi inside and out, call the septic company to come pump the shitter tanks. Like, dude, it was a full time deal. Like, and then
yeah.
Michael would have to park the truck, set it up, dude. It was chaos. It was absolute chaos. Like, and then we didn't have like the semi we had was not set up for motocross racing. So like we had this extra water tank. We're hauling it around, calling people to come fill it up. Like it was just a mess. So big learning year, but it makes you appreciate like when it's good.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I remember him saying, "What was the semi beforehand? He bought it off? Or it was set up for cars or something, wasn't it? Was it?
The semi he had before I was there, I'm not actually sure, but the semi we had when I was there was actually a Yoshimura road racing semi.
Oh, okay, yeah. I knew it was a different.
So
I remember hearing the story. It was a different motorsport, so it was not
yeah,
set up. Yeah, yeah,
so we had to like build a
yeah,
bench in the back where they had a tire rack set up. There wasn't a bathroom in it. We actually put one in between Supercross and outdoors.
yeah,
Then yeah, it was an experience. I'll give it that. But Cody put in results. Carson had some really good results as well here and there. I think it was a big learning year for him as well because he came off of Geico to like a privateer team where you're much more limited. Like
mm,
there's no getting around that. Like uh yeah, you come off a privateer team or come off a factory team to a privateer team, like, hey, my bike's not really working that good. I'm sorry, buddy, but our suspension guy isn't available for a few weeks. You're gonna have to wait.
yeah,
Like it
yeah,
that I mean, it's not super fair to a rider, but that was this the position we were in.
mm,
And
yeah,
I had to say, like, I think for Carson, it was just like, you're kidding me, right? Like that can't be how it is. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but it is.
yeah. So, how did you feel when did the opportunity for Pro Circuit come up first, or did ML let you go first? Like, well, how did that happen? Like, because each opportunity you get, you sort of it's ending. So
Yeah.
how did
Well,
how did that transition happen?
it's crazy because going into 2022, the whole plan was I was no longer going to be a mechanic. I would be crew chief of the team.
Yep.
And he would hire another mechanic for Cody and Carson because that was going to be the plan to keep both those riders. Like they were both semi happy with everything, but if we were going to get better, that's all they cared about. Um, and that was the plan. We were working up budgets with all the companies, and like the budget was doubled from 2021 to 2022. That was like looking really good. So, and obviously good results bring the money. So,
Yeah.
but what people didn't know is that Michael was in a lot of personal debt, um, trying to like cover for the lack of budget. He would just, you know, get a loan, pay for this out of pocket, borrow money from this person. And like, I mean, some people can call it what they want to call it, but he got us through the season, on decent equipment. Obviously, could it be better? Yeah, but we were limited by the money available.
Mm.
We want an engine that is better, but we couldn't afford it. Like for the 250, especially, where it's like Carson's like,
Yeah.
I need more power, and I'm like, buddy, more power is going to cost us a couple more grand per engine.
Yeah.
And now instead of servicing them every other round, it's servicing them every round. So that's an even bigger expense. And it's like, if the money doesn't exist, we can't spend it.
Yeah.
And we used XPR at the time, and Chad with XPR honestly was just floating a lot of stuff for us. He's like, hey, I know you guys are having a hard time. It's on me, He was
Mm.
helping us a lot and getting us through. And I think it was just before Paula, the week before Paula, Michael called me and he was like, we're done. And I was like, hey, like I got some people that might be able to put some money in. Like he's like, no, like you don't understand. Like we're done. Like I'm just not even going to do it. And I was just like, man. And the kicker to all this is my wife was pregnant at the time, and especially at this time, she was like 2 weeks from her due date when
Yeah.
Michael tells me the team is shutting down, and I'm like, oh, okay. And it was a little late to like be calling teams and getting
Mm.
getting a spot.
Yeah.
So I was a little pissed at Michael, but I don't think he was doing anything with ill intent. I think it was more or less just like, I can't do this again. You can't do another year of it where, it's
Mm.
putting him in a position, and also people that were close to him, like his family and everything, in a position because they were helping him as well.
Yeah. He would have been in that. His heart wanted to go on, but his head was telling him he was broke, and
Yeah,
like in
he
a
was in a weird
personal
spot.
battle of his own. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's
Hold on a
talked
second.
about it a bit on different shows and that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He was in a weird spot for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then obviously, like I said, we're 2 weeks from the due date of my son, and I'm panicking. So then I call PC and I go to Mitch. And because of my success with Cody, I had PC, Honda, and I can't. There was one other team I was talking to, but either way, I was talking to Factory Honda to possibly be Chase Sexton's mechanic.
Yeah.
And if that didn't work, then Honda wanted me to come and work in the engine room because I have a lot of experience building engines and working on engines. So
Yeah.
pretty much it came down to Honda was like, we can guarantee you an engine job, but we can't guarantee you the chase job. We still need time. And Mitch was like, take the job now, or I'm pulling the rug out from under you and you're not getting any job. And I was like, man, I didn't have time to wait. Like it was either take the Mitch job or take the chance of not having something sustainable, especially with Honda's location. So I
Yeah.
went with Mitch.
Yeah.
And I don't regret it at all. I've made a really good relationship with Austin, and we've had some good races and some heartbreak on top of it. But that is what you sign up for in this sport. So I don't regret it at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Who was his mechanic before that? Who was Austin's mechanic before you?
It was Ollie Stone.
That's right. Yeah, I knew it was someone that I should know. Yeah, of course. Yeah, it was Ollie, and he went. Yeah, he went up the road
Yeah.
to TLD. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Cool, because he was with him for a fair while. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah, man. Yeah. So, how did you feel like that? That's got to be a bit of an odd one where you come in to take over from a long term guy. Like they had a pretty good relationship and that sort of thing, and then he goes and you come in as the new guy. Was that
Yeah.
like a bit awkward or?
A little. I mean, let's just face it. He's a weird kid, dude. Like I think everyone can see it. He's a little odd,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah, he's odd. Yeah.
I think it was more or less like he was just reserved at first. Obviously, it's just like in my whole career as a mechanic was I never worked with the same rider twice. I always had 1 year with a guy and I'd move on. And some years I was working
Yeah.
with like I'd work with when I was at the club traders thing, I worked with Jace Pennington, I worked with Bradley Taft, I worked with Bogle. I had 3 riders in 1 year, and then obviously TLD, I was with Brian for the whole time, and then I was with Pierce, and then with Cody for a year, and like obviously that was kind of like working for Cody and Carson in a way because there was a lot to manage for 2 guys. Then yeah, going there with PC, it was like new guy again, So I was pretty familiar with how to like get in
Yeah.
the door with the rider, but with Austin, like
Yeah.
he's a very established rider, so it was a little tougher.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I came in and I just tried to be my normal self and help where I felt like it was appropriate to help, and then obviously step back where I felt like I was maybe overstepping because I don't know how much input he wants from me. I don't know if he's like, hey, just work on the bike and like I got this guy helping me with my riding. But it ended up working out where he was like, hey, tell me. Like don't hold back. Tell me. Tell me if there's a problem. So that was nice because he was open. He was like an open book, like he's like, just I need information. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Then that is what it is. But my first 2 years working with Austin, like at the track, it was just me and him because his trainer was Robbie Raynard and they were in Oklahoma, and Pro Circuit was like kind of making him stay in California.
Yeah.
So Robbie could only come out like once or twice in the off season for like 2 days. And then outside of that, I would take some video with Robbie. We'd talk about what we see and plan out what we worked on. So like, again, back with another rider where my involvement is pretty heavy on that side as well as like working with the motorcycle. So it was cool. But then, like I said, this past year, Rhino came in and that made a huge difference. And I think with Austin, super close with Robbie. Like Robbie's like a second dad to him.
Yeah.
And Robbie obviously was like, I can't be there, so this is the logical choice. Go with Rhino. And so there's no hard feelings on that end. And I just think it worked out really well because Austin has someone at the track every single day. And even if Rhino missed a day, like, Rhino would call me like, hey, this is what we're focusing on today. This is the schedule. This is what we're doing. And it was nice that, I could be trusted by Rhino to deliver that and enforce that with Austin. And then Austin respected me well enough to take it from me as what my history is compared to his. So
Yeah. 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 Cool. Awesome. What was the first day? Was there a? I asked this same question to the other Ryan Hughes. What was your first day walking in to be a mechanic at Pro Circuit? What was that feeling like? Was there a bit of a like, wow, how cool is this?
a little bit, man. I honestly was just like I was just jonesing to work on engines, and again, it's almost like you have to like hold back a little bit because like even if you know things, you come into a place and everybody obviously reserves judgment until they see what you can do, but it's just like getting over that threshold of like people knowing how you work and what you're actually capable of. So like all the other mechanics there had been there for a little bit and they're like, hey, like this is how we do things, and it's almost like you had to like let yourself be a student a little bit,
Yeah.
even if there's things like those guys are going to tell you their way, whether you know it or don't know it. They're just going to tell you. So you had to like kind of swallow your ego a little bit going in there
Yeah. Got to
because I
earn
had
your
just come
stripes
off
a little bit. Yeah.
I had just come off of a year where I controlled it all. If I needed it to
Yeah.
happen, I just made a call and I made it happen. Where here it's like, there's a process. There's management and then there's Mitch the owner and everything has to go through them. It's not like I just have freedom.
Yeah.
And it's not like I thought I could come in and change how Mitch Payton runs a team.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that dude's legendary. Like there's no doing that. Like he's smart. If anything, I came in thinking, man, there is so much I could learn from this man because he's seen it
Mm.
all. And that's the mentality I always try to keep is every day is a learning opportunity because I don't know it all. Even the people that have been in this sport forever and are considered the smartest, like Mitch. Mitch is learning every day too. Everyone is
Yeah.
constantly learning. There's always something to figure out. So that's the mentality I try to keep myself. And it's worked out pretty well so far, even though it could be a little annoying getting a lot of questions for the guys sometimes, or for like our crew chief Ian and all that. But you have to learn. So
Yeah. 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 Cool. Awesome, man. You got a really cool story, man. I know. I Oh yeah. So obviously I talked Ryan a bit. Mechanic Ryan. I got to
Yeah,
because
mechanic.
we're talking about two guys with the same name on this show.
Yeah,
And I said to him a while back there, I said, "Hey, yeah, I'd love to get some more mechanics on. You know." I said, "Who would be good?" Because like I know what riders are good interviews. You know,
yeah,
because we see them talk. You know, you see it. You know, but and then I thought, maybe some mechanics probably would be like, "No, I don't want to do that," or they're not. They wouldn't talk and that sort of thing. I said, "Who'd be good?" And he suggested you, and he actually said Tony would be good, but Tony also has a really cool story. And yeah, he was right, man. It is a cool story, a bit of adversity and in and out of teams and injuries and that sort of thing. And your story's still got a plenty of chapters to go, man. So yeah, that's cool, man. I've got a few just other different questions and that sort of thing that I asked towards the end of the show, man. Um, who have you learnt the most from? So let's talk like mechanicking. Who have you learnt the most from?
I'd say Skip Norfolk and Bundy from Bundy Built. As far as like learning the most information in a short window, those guys like took every piece of information that exists and tried to shove it down my throat in a very short span of time, because that's when I was doing all the engines for traders and everything, and learned how to like run the dyno and like make changes and run it again and do all the stuff that came with like developing an engine. So I'd say, and then obviously from Skip, learning how to interact with the rider. That was huge. Obviously, he worked with Jeremy all that time. He had something
Yeah,
figured out. So I'd say those two guys, and then obviously Mitch and Ian at PC have taught me a ton, and it's invaluable. There's no price tag on it, and it's not something you can just come by easily. This is coming from countless years of experience. So that stuff is it's cool to learn, and I'd say those people are definitely who I've learned the most from.
what's your best bit of advice for a young mechanic?
No matter what you think, people are watching. That was like the piece of advice that was told to me. They're like, hey, and that was actually from Skip as well. He was like, you may think no one's looking at what you're doing because you're on a small team, but people are watching. Everyone
Yeah,
sees what you do. So
yeah,
no matter what you think, people are always watching. People are always aware of your work, the quality of work, and everything.
mm,
So if you're going to do the work, do it right.
yeah.
That was the biggest piece of advice I ever got.
That's it. That's really interesting, man. Yeah. So yeah, like I haven't been involved in any race teams or anything like that, but I've been involved in some big businesses, and the yeah, people are and racing is a business. People are always watching for potential up and comers, man. And they always want to
Yeah,
know that they have their notebook of potential up and comers and people that are doing a good job that could end up doing a good job for them. So that's sort of that's a an interesting one, man. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
It's a great bit of advice. Yeah,
yeah. And I always like it's hard for me as well, because my history, I was a racer. And I mean, it's a preconceived notion that riders aren't good at working on bikes, but I grew up working on stuff. So that was just kind of like
yeah,
second nature to me. So I always go into everywhere with a little bit of a chip on my shoulder, like, yeah, I need to prove something. So I'd always work extra hard and try to bring the best quality of work I could, and it's paid off. So
yeah. I think it's important that riders have a little bit of mechanical knowledge myself. I think it's a important thing,
yeah,
especially when it comes to things like mud races and things like that. I think when you have a bit of mechanical knowledge, you have a bit more mechanical sympathy, and you can, instead of just torching a bike in a mud race, you got a little bit of, knowledge of, you don't have to be told to get off the clutch. Righto. Time for a little ad read. Gutsracing.com. Greg's Ultra Trick Seats. That's what it stands for. Very, very stoked to have them supporting the show. If you want to be a winner, like RJ Hampshire winning Supercross titles, like Kyder Wolf and Lucas Kernan winning, just cleaning up over there in Europe. Jed Beaton winning races here in Australia, all with something in common, all on gut seats, as well as riders like who aren't maybe winning races, but they're winning hearts, like Phil Nicoletti and Malcolm Stewart. So obviously Club MX using the seats and Rockstar Husqvarna, as well as PRMX Kawasaki, Moto Concepts Racing, AO KTM, Next Level KTM, Phoenix Honda, Hep Suzuki, Kenny. Kenny is out there on a gut seat. And you can get seat covers. Obviously, you can get complete seats. You can get custom seats. You can get the seat bump. Has made a bit of a comeback. We're seeing more seat bumps in the pits, aren't we? You can get the ultralight seat foam. You can get a wide wing seat if you want a bit more grip around the knees. Huge range of colours. You can get tall seats if you're a lanky sort of a fella. You can get a Velcro fitment seat if you don't want to tackle the job with a staple gun. Speaking of fitment, when you get your gut seat, it comes with a QR code or a selection of QR codes. You scan the one that suits your product, and that will take you to a video where you'll probably see Andy Gregg himself showing you how to install that seat cover. So that is pretty cool. As privateer hero Scott Meshy says, who is also a guts athlete. As Scott Meshy says, they are a butt gripper and they will make you a ripper. Gutsracing.com is the website. That's real easy to remember. Gutsracing.com. We are also still running the contest for a gut seat cover that is open to veterans. This stems from our military appreciation show, and Andy Gregg is good enough to be. We're going to basically give away a seat cover to a veteran who rides or whose kids ride. To enter the competition, it's pretty simple. All you need to do is just DM me on socials, or you can email me AussieSteve569 at gmail.com, AussieSteve569 at gmail.com. And I just want a bit of a story on your military and moto life. Just a brief on your military life is all I need. You don't need to share too much detail on that if you don't want to. But I want to know about your moto life. I want to know how much you love riding that bike, or how much you love riding watching your kids ride their bikes. I want to hear about that. The moto, there really is a connection between veterans and moto. You just keep coming across it. One of the reasons why I did that episode, and I've also got Peter from Veteran MX coming up on an episode shortly, maybe the next one or the one after. So that will be really cool. Okay, let's get back to Tony Archer and find out a little bit more about him. Cheers. What's a day off look like? So obviously at the moment with Austin injured, life's probably a little bit less hectic. But during a race season when a job's on, so what does a day off look like? How are you relaxing?
Well, right now I have weekends, but when you're racing, days off don't exist. To be honest,
At all. No.
Especially with Mitch, man, like he's pretty demanding as far as the workload goes. So, but your day off is pretty much flying home Sunday.
Yeah.
I guess to give you a little insight to the schedule of when you're full time it's pretty grueling. Let's just say you fly to go to the race on Wednesday is the normal schedule. You fly Wednesday because obviously you're going California to East Coast usually. Then you stay in a hotel. You build the bike Thursday, which is a full teardown, scrub, clean, everything. Full teardown, build the bike back up on Thursday. You set up the semi Friday. If you have press, you do press. Race Saturday. And then normally you fly home Sunday super early. Get home midday, noon, California time. And noon to That night you go to bed, and then Monday morning you are back in the shop. You're either prepping parts from the weekend, and then you do all that Monday and get everything ready for the following weekend, and then Tuesday you're either at the track with your rider or you're building an engine, depending on like if other mechanics are available to help you. And then you're back out Wednesday, and that's the routine, and it is wide open, dude. There is no rest. And like I said, when you're in the race season, there are no days off. There's always something to do, and that's like the hardest part. Like there's always something to do, no matter what. You can think there's nothing to do, but Mitch will come in. Hey, this needs to be done. Like we got stuff to do. There's no standing around. So as far as that goes, like you're held accountable for staying busy and working hard there for sure.
Yeah. So what about on those Sunday afternoons, man? Like when you've got a few hours. What's a few hours look like? I should say then. Yeah. What do you do? What are you unwinding then, man? Is it you like just you're watching a movie or you sneaking in a few holes of golf, or what's the go there?
Man,
Or you just sleeping?
I wish it was just sleeping, but I got a son. He's almost 3 years old now, and
Yeah.
it's pretty much like I'd love to come home and just rest, but considering I'm gone a lot, when I come home
Yeah.
on Sunday, I'd like to, if I get home, I'll grab my wife and kid and we'll go to the park and hang out and watch him play, and like we'll just do something where I don't have to do a ton, but I can still hang out and play with
Yeah.
my kid and have a
Yeah.
good time. And then usually it's like get caught up on laundry, cook dinner and hang out with my wife, watch TV show and at night, and then but like the weekends off that we have,
Yeah.
yeah, golf. Lots of
Golf.
golf, man, as much as I can. And then I
Yeah.
do a little bit of RC car racing too and stuff. But yeah, golf. Golf is like my big thing. Me and Ryan golf a lot, and we kind of
Yeah.
suck, but it's all right.
Nice one. Nice. Yeah. Yeah. I know I've heard other mechanics say that. Yeah. The job gets harder once you're a dad, man.
Yeah,
It's a job that's kind of geared to single guys a lot, isn't it? So it would be hard
yeah.
hard job as a dad. Yeah, yeah,
Well, it's all about like we're passionate about what we do. Like we love
yes,
this. Like obviously that's why we do it. And
yeah,
when my son was born, it was like I didn't care before that. I'll stay till midnight and work. I'll wake up at 6 a.m. and work all day long. Didn't care because that's what I wanted to do, make things better and advance and everything else. And then I have a son and I have a wife, and they need time. So balancing work and life and passion for the sport was like the hardest part for me for sure. Because
yeah.
when my son was born, and then 2 days later I was starting my first day at PC.
Oh,
So, and like
dang,
with
yeah,
how demanding Mitch is, and like he's like you're putting in the hours, but uh I was I would get my work done and I'd go home. Like that's kind of how I do it. But Mitch wants to see you do more. Like, hey, he wants to see you take initiative to do more and more and more. And it's not that I wasn't doing more. Like I was doing everything that I needed to do. I just really, really had to work hard at managing my time. Like instead of staying late, I'd show up super early in the morning. I wouldn't sit down for lunch. I mean, most of the time
yeah,
we're at the track, but I'd show up early, do some work before we go to the track. Go to the track. I'm not sitting down for lunch. I'm not stopping at a restaurant. I'm not doing that. I'm just going straight to the shop, getting my work done. And then when it's time to go home, it's time to go home. And that was it for me. And I think like it wasn't seen that way at first because Mitch was like, hey, I need to see you putting in the time. I need to see that you really want this. And I was like, what you don't see is that I'm the first one there. I may not be the last one to leave, but I'm the first one there in the morning. I'm getting my work done. I'm not behind. I'm helping people when they're behind. Like it turned into that a little bit, and I think once that was relayed and seen and
yeah,
accounted for, like there were no more problems. But I just had to find a way to like have the best of both worlds, where like my wife and kid are happy, I'm happy. I get to itch or scratch that little itch I have, for the
mm,
sport, because everybody wants to put in the time and they want more, and they want the work they do to make a difference, and that's kind of what I was chasing. So
yeah. time's an interesting thing, man, because time is not equal across people, different people. Like
Yeah,
a Tony Archer hour is not the same as some other mechanic's hour.
yeah,
And that sort of thing. Like I can. This week I built someone a pergola. I can build that pergola a fucking lot quicker than some of my opposition can, So,
yeah,
because of just experience and also just good work methods of how to get things done quicker.
yeah,
Um, and that sort of thing. And there's a lot of people talk about hours. It's not so much hours. It's the work done. The time is not as relevant as the work done. Yeah,
yep,
it's a funny thing, but people always come back. Like there's some dumbass lazy guy who he's 60 minutes are the same as your 60 minutes on the clock. So the clock doesn't actually mean shit, does it? Like
yeah,
because you know he's
yeah.
there's a dumbass lazy mechanic out there somewhere, man, and he hasn't even got the plastics off, and you've got the motor out. So it's like
Exactly, dude. Like you
yeah,
learn to work quick when that time matters more, So, and like
yeah,
obviously to
yeah,
work quick with quality as well is the biggest
yeah.
challenge. So that was something that I had to make myself do, and I think I had a little bit of that already, just based on, like I said, the previous year with Michael. Like we wore a lot of hats. We weren't just
Mm,
mechanics. We had to do a lot more. So like you had to be fast and efficient because otherwise you'd be up all night. You wouldn't go to sleep.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it was just important to figure that part of it out and how to do it. So
Mm, cool, man. Cool. Do you
yeah,
follow other sports? So you play golf? Do you follow any other sports? Are you into anything else? What like your other interests and
no,
stuff?
I follow a little bit of golf. I don't watch it like religiously. I just follow like the leaderboard and highlights and stuff. I watch F1. I watch NASCAR, motorsports like in general.
Yeah,
Outside of that, I've never been like a stick and ball sport, man. Like golf is. You'd think if I'm not into stick and ball sports, that'd be the last one I'd watch. But I can relate because I try to play golf, and
yeah,
yeah, I don't follow football or baseball or hockey or any of that. I
yeah.
don't think I have the mental capacity to like follow too many things, and I always say like I can only follow like a little bit of
I
everything, and
know
then
it's
like
like
all of
that.
moto.
It's like that, man. Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
yeah. It is like that. Yeah, I get so involved in sports that I can't follow too many because I just don't have time. Like,
Yeah,
I
like
can't go really. Yeah, there's a few sports that are sort of on the fringe. I'll watch the scores. I'll watch a really good game. But yeah, I've only got me a couple of things that I follow really, like
yeah.
religiously. So yeah, that's the go. What about music, man? What sort of music are you into?
Oh man. I'm a little all over the map, man. I'm not like Ryan. I'm not a day to remember, die hard,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
I don't know. I don't really listen. I listen to obviously I do listen to like some punk rock and a little bit of emo music like Ryan. I mean, at the shop, Ryan's he's a music junkie, dude. He chooses the music. No one's allowed to say otherwise. uh, but like I don't really listen to like hardcore rap or anything. Like a little bit of like mellow rap, some punk rock, I don't say classic rock, old school rock, like Def Leppard, all that stuff. Like my dad grew up making me listen to that stuff, so
yeah, yeah. Good. Yeah,
a lot of that.
yeah, yeah,
Kind of all over the place, man. I kind of depending on where I'm at, like mood wise. A lot of Mac Miller sometimes. Like his early stuff, the original Mac Miller, the OG stuff. So yeah, little depends on the mood, but a little bit of everything.
yeah, man. Cool, cool. What's on the bucket list, man? So I mean, there's a couple of obvious ones, as far as there's a couple of obvious ones as far as racing. You want to win a championship with Austin. That's all. I already know that's there. But what else, man? What other things? Is there anything else that you'd like to do? Maybe later in your career. Different disciplines or different countries. Is there anything else on your bucket list that you sort of hope to achieve?
I'd really like to. Obviously, championship with Austin would be amazing. That would be unreal. Just
Yeah,
because being with him through this right now,
yeah,
like seeing what he had to go through to get it, and then kind of being a part of it, in some way, shape, or form, would be.
yeah,
I'd have a lot of pride in that.
yeah, for sure.
As funny as it sounds, like every other pro racer that quits, I'd love to go back to Loretta's and try to do like 25 plus or something.
Nice.
Um,
Yeah,
I think I'm almost to a point where my time has passed on that a little bit, but I get. I always say it's funny. So I quit racing and I started working with a lot of riders and riding coaches, like kind of listening and being a part of it with my rider. And now when I ride a motorcycle better and faster than I could when I raced. Briefly though, very briefly.
yeah,
If I get 2 laps out of me before my arms are shot, because I only ride
yeah.
like once every
Because you
six
don't get a
months.
chance to do it. Yeah,
Yeah. So the other day it was funny. I went out and Seth and Cameron were riding, and it was kind of like an off day for me. So I grabbed a bike and I went out and rode with the guys. And Cameron was kind of jazzing me up a little bit, getting me all amped up. He's like, "You, dude, you can send it. You're freaking shredding out there." And I'm like, "Dude, you can't say that." And he's like, "I bet you can throw down a lap. I bet you can do it." And like, one of the mechanics was there, and he was keeping my lap times, and he's like, "Not good enough. Come on, go faster." And I sent it for a lap, and like it was decently fast, and I was like, "I can do it." But dude, as soon as the lap was over, I'm just like, man, I don't need to be laying in a hospital bed with my kid looking at me. So that's
mm,
like the thoughts in my head because I can still go
yeah,
fast, but I don't think I have like the riding fitness that I used to have. So like now, literally, I can do 2 corners and I can barely feel my fingers. So
mm.
scary. But the 25 plus thing would be cool if I could like really put effort into it. Otherwise, I don't think I would do it.
Cool, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. I love it, man. When people talk about getting back into racing, I
Yeah.
always love that 'cause it's like, yeah, oh
I
yeah, it's
actually,
good.
in the off season this year, I went and just did a race at Glen Helen. Ryan's fiance Amber, you obviously know who she is.
Yeah,
Ryan was like, "Yeah, she'll just comp your entry, dude. Come out and race." And I'm like, "No, I don't need to do that. I don't need to do that." But like, had to, had an itch to scratch, and I went out there and raced, and I went out for a 25 plus moto and won against a couple good dudes, and then I went out in the pro classes and for one lap, dude, I ran through the pack and got to the front, and then as soon as my hands started slipping off, and I got my wife and kid with me at the track, I just
yeah, yeah.
it wasn't honestly I didn't want it like I used to, just
Mm,
because of like the risk, especially like trying to go that hard without riding for months, trying
yeah,
to maintain a speed that I am not capable of maintaining right now. So
yeah.
the one lap is there, but outside of that, dude, I got nothing. So I packed it up and went home after the first motos, dude. I was like, I can't
Yeah,
do it, dude. I can't make myself go out there and just ride around slow. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. There's it's not fun when your arms are shot and you suck. Like it's not fun, is
mhm,
it? You know.
no,
Yeah.
one lap wonder. That's all I am nowadays.
Cool,
And that
man.
one lap still ain't that great.
Sounds like wasn't too bad though. So yeah, you never
Yeah,
know, man.
not the
Yeah,
worst laps you've ever seen, but I'm not going to go out and compete at a national anytime soon. I can tell you that.
yeah. Cool, man. Who's what about your celebrity hall pass, man? So Mrs. Archer gives you a
Oh
gives you a chance with your celebrity crush. Who was that?
man, I don't think I have one. I'm gonna be honest. I don't have one.
You
I
don't
think that's a
don't
tender
have
area for her. She's just like, if there's no hall pass, so I don't think there is one. I don't think I should answer that question for my own
That's all
safety.
right. No, I'm all for that. I ask that question every now and again, but I'm all for it when people when dudes take the safe route and don't answer it. I
Yeah,
understand. I understand. Like yeah, my wife just fucking laughs when I tell her stuff like that. But yeah, not all wives are that what is understanding, you know. So yeah,
yeah, yeah. No,
That's all
No,
right,
it's
man.
not something we've really ever talked about, so I'm not trying to take any guesses, you know?
That's the way, man. That's the
Oh,
way.
yeah.
Cool, man. Um, I think that'll probably do us, man. I've kept you for a little while. It'll be starting to get a bit later there, and you're heading into your weekend off, man. So yeah,
Yeah, man.
yeah, man. Thank you very much for your time, dude. There's two things I do towards the end of the show. One is give me your best Aussie accent.
My best Aussie accent.
Yeah,
Oh,
man. Yeah.
dude.
So, yeah,
You
just
know how hard it is, like, on the spot. On the
I
spot.
know,
It is
man. I know, man.
insane.
That's what I do to everyone. So,
Best Aussie accent. I'm trying to think of even what to say.
yeah, you could just. I'd
Here's the
usually
messed up
just.
thing. Our crew chief is Australian. You know, I
Yeah,
listen
I'll
to him every day.
give us an impression. Yeah, man. So who's that then? That's
His name is Ian Southwell.
Ian Southwell. I didn't realize he was an Aussie. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
an
he's an
Aussie.
Aussie. He's been in
There's a
America.
lot of Aussies over there that you don't realize. Yeah, I keep finding out more and more. Yeah, yeah.
All
Give
right,
us an Ian impersonation then.
an Ian impersonation. All right. uh, shit, I'm trying to think of something he would say if we do something dumb. All right, mate. Why'd you come in here and do that? Why'd
You
you think that
sound
was a good idea, mate?
you sound a bit English, yeah, which is
Dude,
often
yeah.
it often happens. Often,
The the
I don't
pressure
know
is
why,
so real
but
right now.
often when Americans try and do Aussie, they end up sounding a bit English, and that's what you're
All
sounding
right.
a little
So
bit
the
English.
question for you is who of your guests has had the best Aussie accent?
Kellen Brower is the
Really?
best. Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
No,
Okay.
it's
Well,
legit, like voice actor level, like really good, like blew me away. There's been a
yeah.
few good ones. A few good ones. Who else was good? Mike Webb was good because he was taken off Josh Strang, so he
Yeah.
was pretty good because he'd spent a
Yeah.
lot of time with Josh, and he'd spent a lot of time with another Aussie too. Oh, yeah, Josh Strang and Glenn Kearney were his two Aussie riders when he was running the
Wow.
GNCC team, so he was pretty good. Yeah, but nah, Callan would still be the best though. Yeah, he it really caught me by surprise. Yeah. So, but
Yeah.
yeah,
He
nah,
could handle the pressure. Me, I could not handle the pressure. You know.
that's all right.
Great when you're trying to put me on the spot right there.
No, it's a bit of fun, man. I can't remember how good Ryan did, man. Because yeah, that was like I said, show one. He was
Yeah.
it was the old thing. Get your mate in for show one for make sure that you're comfortable and everything's working properly and all that sort of
Yeah.
thing. I have to get him on again at some stage
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Yeah, get him on again maybe after the outdoors and get him to do a bit of
Oh
a
yeah. After he's
bit
got
of a
some more wind,
recap.
his head's like this big around, dude.
Hopefully
I
it is, man. Hopefully it is. Yeah, that him and
hope
Ty
so.
both deserve it, man. Yeah.
I know. We've been giving him crap because he hasn't done a lot of racing. We're like, oh, we get it. You're a race guy now. Oh, you got your first win. Whoa. All of us
Yeah,
are under you, dude. Don't worry, we know.
yeah.
But no, it's all
Yeah.
just in good fun. We just like to give him a hard time. But
Yeah. It's one of the good things about a workplace like that, where you got a bunch of guys in a factory or whatever. Like the banter and all that. It's good fun, isn't it? Like
oh, don't worry, you got to have real thick skin to be
yeah,
in
yeah,
this
yeah,
job. Real thick
yeah,
skin.
yeah. I've done a lot of jobs and different things over the years, and yeah, it's one. Like I actually quite enjoy working on my own nowadays. Most of the time, I work on my own, and I quite
Yeah.
enjoy that in its own way. But then sometimes I miss just being with a bunch of blokes just giving each other shit and all that
Mhm.
sort of thing. Is blokes or girls or whatever, just because
Yeah.
I'm a pretty heavy shit stirrer myself, So and I
We're
can
just
take it. I can take it as well, though, just as good.
yeah.
You got to be able to take it if you give it. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
we're
is.
lucky there's no microphones in that shop, man. We'd probably be on a list somewhere for sure.
Yeah, that's all right, man. Yeah, yeah. Cool, man. And then the last thing I do on the show, man. So my outro song is me singing a little bit of Kenny Rogers, man. And I
Okay.
always say to people, if you know the words to The Gambler, you're more than welcome to join in. but there is never any expectations, man. So some people know the song, some people don't, and it's just a bit of a fun when they do join in, man. So I'll just ease into a little bit of Kenny. So I handed him my bottle, and he drank down my last swallow. Then he bummed a cigarette and asked me for a light. And the night got deathly quiet, and his face lost all expression. Said, if you're gonna play the game, boy, you gotta learn to play it right. You got to know when to hold 'em, know when to fold 'em, know when to walk away, know when to run. You never count your money. When you're sitting at the table, there'll be time enough for counting when the dealing's done. Tony Archer, thank you very much for coming on the show today, man. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I'll be definitely saying g'day. My sights are set on A1, but I'm not sure exactly which race I'll get over there to next year. It might be something a bit later than that, but I'll definitely be swinging by PC, and I'll say g'day.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me on. I'm glad I got to share a little bit of my story. I could have sat here all night and told you a lot, but no, you got the gist of it. You got the gist of the good and the bad, and I appreciate you letting me share it.
Thank you, man. Yeah, man, and like all guests, man, like I'd love to have you back on again, man. You can tell us some more stories, and hopefully we'll be discussing Austin winning races on his way to a
Yeah,
championship. Yeah,
I hope so, man. That'd be amazing.
that would be, man. All right, thank you very much, man. Cheers. Enjoy the
Thank you.
rest of your evening.
Appreciate it. You too.
Cheers, man.